Hi everyone, I'm Richard and I'm lucky enough to have here two excellent 21:9 monitors from Acer, the XR341CK and the Predator X34. What they both have in common is a massive 34-inch ultra-wide IPS panel featuring a remarkable 3440 by 1440 resolution. And on top of that, they're both curved displays too. And it's a subtle but effective effect that attempts to kind of wrap the extended field of view around you on the desktop. Out of the box, these two displays look very similar indeed. Bar some cosmetic differences, the chassis is pretty much identical and the screen itself looks very close on first inspection. But there are some differences in terms of I/O. Both feature USB 3.0 hubs, but the Predator model features just HDMI and DisplayPort, while the XR341CK has an additional HDMI port plus mini DisplayPort too. But the XR341CK has a 75Hz panel and features support for AMD's FreeSync, whereas the X34 Predator has a base 60Hz refresh and features G-Sync tech. But something that needs to be stressed about the Predator is that it's overclockable via the on-screen display. Now, results may well vary between one screen and the next, but in theory you should be able to push this screen all the way up to 100 Hz. The XR341CK, on the other hand, it requires overclocking the old-fashioned way via custom resolutions. And really and truly, anything you get above 75 Hz should be considered bonus. So, what can you do with an ultra-wide display? Okay, let's talk productivity first. Ultra-wide 1440p effectively pushes out horizontal resolution by 30% compared to a standard 16:9 1440p screen. Now, that may not sound like too much of a big deal, but for those of us who edit video regularly, being able to see much more of the timeline is a bit of a game changer. Once you've sampled video editing on a screen like this, let me tell you that going back to a standard widescreen display is a cruel and unusual punishment. Now, you may well think that a standard 4K display offers more pixels, making it the better bet. But it's not the pixel count that matters, it's the configuration. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of 4K screens, and I say that as a regular user of a rather excellent 32-inch Asus monitor. Pixel density is insanely high, and once Windows suboptimal scaling gets in the way, the additional real estate doesn't really count for much. Now, going ultra-wide, that means there's no scaling. Everything looks as it should in Windows. You just have more space to play with. And, in actual fact, having fewer pixels is actually a good thing for gaming. Think about it. At 4K resolution, the GPU needs to power around 8.3 million pixels per frame. Now this drops to around 5 million on an ultra-wide 1440p monitor. So 60% of the resolution basically means that you get much higher frame rates compared to 4K. Let's check out some benchmarks comparing 4K to ultra-wide 1440p. We're going to use Fury X and GTX 980 Ti here. They're both generally around 30% faster than the 390X and GTX 980 respectively, and ultra-wide 1440p is a 33% increase in res over standard 16:9 1440p. So basically it's a good match of GPU with pixel density. First up, Assassin's Creed Unity, and doesn't it look cool with an ultra-wide aspect ratio? This is a demanding game, averaging at a dire 25.3 FPS at 4K on Fury X, but this rises to 39.6 FPS at ultra-wide 1440p. That is an impressive 56% boost in frame rate, and you'll get pretty much the same boost with the GTX 980 Ti too. Battlefield 4, well that's interesting, 74.4 FPS on Fury X, a rise of 46% from the 4K score. The GTX 980 Ti can actually average 61 FPS on these settings at 4K, but that rises dramatically to 91.2 at ultra-wide 1440p. So that faster refresh rate on the X34, it can make a real difference. It's a similar story with Crysis 3, here seen at high settings. We average a decent enough 52.2 FPS on the Fury X at 4K, but this shoots up to 77 at ultra-wide 1440p, and there's a similar bump on GTX 980 Ti, which is just a touch faster. Far Cry 4 also registers some hefty increases too at the very high setting. An okay-ish 47 FPS average on Fury X at 4K rises to a much healthier 68.7, another performance boost in the 45% region. GTX 980 Ti, once again it follows a very close pattern. And finally, Rise jumps from 44 to 68 FPS on Fury X, a 54% increase. GTX 980 Ti rises from 41 to 64.3, again another 54% increase. And what I really like about these two Acers is the adaptive sync support. Running at a high resolution with a perfectly stable V-synced presentation is the way that I personally like to game. But sustaining 60 FPS at all times is a real challenge, let alone 75. Adaptive sync tech like FreeSync and G-Sync smooths out performance drops, so you get minimized judder and no screen tearing. Now overall, G-Sync offers up a smoother experience than FreeSync based on our testing. But if you can adjust your settings to get a more consistent frame rate, even introducing a frame rate limiter, you can get excellent results from both technologies. But the real takeaway here isn't just performance. Faster frame rates are always welcome, of course, but what the ultra-wide monitor form factor offers is an enhanced field of view. Wider real estate doesn't just mean that you're getting more pixels, you're actually seeing more of the play area. This has obvious advantages for first-person shooters and cockpit games, but personally, I really like the wider viewpoint in third-person titles like Assassin's Creed. It feels like you're getting more of a kind of cinematic gameplay experience. But it's important to note that while a majority of games do support the 21:9 aspect ratio format by default, other games, well, they sort of support it or they don't at all. Take The Witcher 3 for example. Gameplay, no problem, but cutscenes have black borders on each side. That's kind of a bit weird. Or check out Tomb Raider here. No proper 21:9 support, so everything is stretched out horizontally in a highly unattractive manner. But the good news is that the modding community can help out here. Check out the links in the video description to see how most games, sooner or later, can be whipped into shape if they don't support 21:9 out of the box. Overall, both of these monitors are premium grade gaming displays. High refresh rates, adaptive sync support, excellent color reproduction, accomplished levels of contrast, and yes, low latency, essential for a great gameplay experience. To be honest, there's not much to choose between them. The Predator X34 has its OSD overclocking plus G-Sync, while the XR341CK has some nice touches of its own in addition to FreeSync, such as picture-by-picture and picture-in-picture support, plus there are far more inputs. But these are premium grade displays and come with price points to match. As always in the PC space, the best products are never cheap. And if we had to quibble, well, glossy plastics, they do look a little bit cheap. But on the flip side, the feature set and the experience here, well, they're simply superb. Now there's this perception that more pixels means a better experience. But even though I've got a great 32-inch 4K screen in the office, this is the one I've been using for everyday work and play. It is, quite literally, a game changer. Anyway, that's all I've got for you for now. And I really hope that you enjoyed this particular video. As always, you can really help us out and support Digital Foundry simply by pressing the like button and subscribing, of course. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching.